back with another fun-filled video for you. And today we're going to be taking a look at another knife maker. That knife maker is Des Hoorn. He is probably the most important knife maker in South Africa. There is no other knife maker that even compares to what he has accomplished as a knife maker. He does absolutely fantastic work. And he is definitely a knife maker to be reckoned with. His influence, his work is seen everywhere on everyone's, in everyone else's knives, constantly innovating, constantly doing new things, constantly trying new things. Des Hoorn is the guy. What I have in my hand here is the Des Hoorn ball release. Now I'm going to give you a quick description of this knife. We've got some lightning strike carbon fiber and zirconium for the bolster. We've also got a zirconium ball for the ball release. So that's kind of a new, kind of a really very pretty aesthetic. We've got a Damascus blade, Swedish Damascus blade. Very, very pretty. He is the #1 supplier in South Africa of Damacore and Damasteel blades. So, you know, he knows how to work with the materials like no other knife maker. His knife making is completely done all by hand. There are no machines on his work. He just does it all by hand, including the file work that we're seeing here, which is just absolutely spectacular. So one of the things that Des Hoorn does is he likes to innovate in his own way. One of the things that he does, that one of the inventions that he's created is the ball release, and you can see Des Hoorn's influence in a lot of other knife makers' work. But if you think about it, the ball release here is probably similar to the Civivi, the Civivi Elementum knife with the button lock. You can pretty much guess it's a possibility that they may have borrowed that concept from Des Hoorn. It's a possibility. One of the things that Des Hoorn tried to do was he actually did try to get other knife makers to adapt the ball release, but they were not that interested. It looked like a very, very complicated mechanism to create. But keep this in mind, his knives are made by hand, so you would have to do each one of these ball releases by hand. There is no machine that would create the ball release on spec in very quick amount of time. Only Des Hoorn would be able to create that by hand. So pretty much the way the ball release works, I'll show you. So instead of a regular knife where it's a liner lock or a frame lock, where you will find the lock is actually on the liner of the lock, or actually the frame of the lock of the knife in most cases, what Des Hoorn has done here was, instead of you having to take your thumb, right, push the liner lock out of the way and then close the knife, where you might accidentally injure yourself, he makes sure he has created what's called the ball release. And the ball release allows you to open and close the knife without getting your hand anywhere near the blade. So basically the way it works is this. We open the knife with the front flipper, and then to close it, you can do it one-handed, but it does take practice. You just simply take the knife and then you close it, and now you don't have to have your hand anywhere near the blade. So that was an innovation that he has created, and you can see how it works. This is the ball, and on the inside of the knife there is a piece of the liner sticking out. You press it, and the liner is now out of the way. Now you can close the knife, but the knife is as solid as a rock. There's no way for the knife to close on you while the knife is locked like that, with the liner sort of hard and snug right down underneath the tang of the blade there. There's just no way. The only way that knife is going to release itself is if you press the lock. and close a knife. So that was an innovation that he came up with, hoping that other people might adapt to it. Unfortunately, it did not happen. But you know, c'est la vie. This one continues to move on and make knives the way he wants to make them. He doesn't, you know, if something doesn't work for someone else, that's fine. It's only for him, and he's fine with that. And the people who buy his knives really do appreciate all the hard work that he's put into his pieces. Again, there's no other knife maker out there that has the influence that he has in the world of knife making. Des Horn actually started out strictly as a dentist about 18 years ago. He retired and began making knives, and now he does it full time. Even things like the screws and the pivot are all done by him by hand. He engraves these by hand, and the guy's not even an engraver, so go figure. And yet they still look absolutely fantastic. Just beautiful, beautiful overall. As you guys can tell, the zirconium golf textured bolster there is also done by hand. Really very pretty. The knife has a high gloss on it. It's called K2. It's called K2 spray, and he sprays it on the knife and it gives it that nice gloss. But it also has another feature. What it does is it allows the knife to almost have I can't tell in the light, but it almost allows the carbon fiber to have sort of like a 3D effect, which I think is really pretty. The file work he does by hand. We've got Damascus for the back spacer. So this is really a full dress piece. All the way. There's not one piece on this knife that is not covered in art. It's just fantastic. I gotta be honest with you guys, I can't really afford this knife, but I got it anyway. I finally paid it off 3 days ago. It's probably one of the main reasons why I'm doing this video. It's just a spectacular, spectacular piece. The knife, this version of his knives, he does make knives that run on ball bearings. This one only runs on washers. So there is no, but that doesn't detract from the fact that the knife is incredibly smooth. The work that this man does is just absolutely amazing. He makes really sleek, clean lines on his knives. Nothing is out of sort. His centering is always dead on. Always. One of the things you gotta admire is the extreme that he goes to create the file work that's done by hand on his knife. I don't think anybody can actually match him for that. He's done other inventions as well that never really caught on. He has another knife called a double action credit card automatic knife. That knife is really expensive, so expensive. I don't think I'm even allowed to take a look at pictures of that knife. But I wanted one of his more high-end pieces, so I got the ball release, and I'm very happy with it. The most famous knife that he makes is a knife called the Mvubu, which means the hippopotamus. A lot of people have caught on to that knife. That's actually the knife that became his signature knife that he makes, and a lot of knife makers, are actually quite amazed that he's able to create such a knife that runs only on washers, and it's incredibly smooth. It's practically drop shut smooth. But even his washer knives in general, like this ball release here, is drop shut smooth. All you gotta do is release the ball, and you can see, I mean, the knife is just absolutely spectacular overall. He has a style that's sort of old school, but he's also able to bring in new inventions like the ball release, like the automatic credit card feature. So he challenges himself in that way. Other knife makers kind of actually admire it. He's known as maybe the grandfather of knife making in general. There's another knife maker that fits in that category, and that's Owen Wood. Although Owen Wood has been kind of, sort of obscure. He doesn't get into the fame or any of the other stuff that, and he's not even, his work isn't actually shown all that much. But when it is shown, and you can check out his website, you can see his work is quite as similar as Des Horn, but completely different. They're almost like two peas in a pod, I guess, when it comes to knife making, because there's so many similar things that they do, but yet their work is so completely different than each other's. I love Des Horn's use of textures and colors and the way he can create a theme, where you've got all this dark, like the main part of the knife's got all this dark, and then peeking out you've got some light objects in here, like the engraved pivot that kind of makes it shine, gives it a whole new texture. And then of course there's a little bit of blue in his knife, so he knows how to use colors quite well on knives, where that becomes kind of that kind of makes the knife take on a life of its own anyway. So he can really just put together the fit, the finish, the quality, and the aesthetics like no other knife maker. In other words, the finished product is always just stellar. You can clearly see his influence in the work of Andre Thorburn, in Ericus Ramirez, John Arnold, and all the other knife makers that came after him. He is definitely one of the knife makers, or at least I would probably say the knife maker that created the entire market for the rest of South Africa, in a sense. He's definitely a knife maker to be reckoned with. His other skills include his ability to restructure steel to make it super, super sharp. For example, there is a knife steel called Nitrobe 77. I've got 6 knives made with that steel, and I've never ever felt or seen cutting ability done so well. And the knife and the steel Nitrobe 77 is a difficult steel to work with, in a sense that, again, all of his knives are made by hand, but also the working with the steel to get the knife as sharp as he can get it, that takes a lot of work. Nitrobe 77 is a steel that goes through a rigorous heat treatment, and then it's dipped in liquid nitrogen 4 times to give it strength. Other knife makers will not work with that steel, but Ericus Ramirez basically made a market for it, and he now owns almost all of the Nitrobe 77 in the world. But that, if you ever get a chance to experience that steel, and I believe you can experience it on an A2 knife. If you're into A2 knives, Andre Thorburn and Andre Van Heerden, they do make A2 knives with Nitrobe 77. As I said before, the steel is incredibly difficult to work with, but the results can be, I mean, just hands down, probably a steel that's a hell of a lot better than M390, which is the standard these days. So that being said, I just wanted to show you guys my high-end large ball release made by Des Horn, and maybe talk about Des Horn's work a little bit and his influence in knife making. There are so many knife makers out there that give hats off to this guy, and I just pretty much wanted to give my hats off to Des Horn. He's my favorite all-time knife maker of all the South African knife makers. I hate to say that, as much as I love Andre Thorburn and Ericus Ramirez and Trevor Berger and all the other great knife makers. Des Horn always steals my heart every time, and he's a real sweet guy. I'm going to continue talking here. There's something that I have learned about knife making and having access to the knife makers that are out there. It's one thing I discovered One of the reasons I love Des Horn so much is the fact that he makes himself accessible as a knife maker. You can talk to him on Instagram. You can order a knife anytime from him, and in other words, you have access to him. So if you want him to make you a knife, he'll make you a knife. There are knife makers out there that just shut themselves off completely, and this is no reflection on them, but this is just the way that they have decided to do business. I think that's kind of wrong, especially in the world of collecting. Where you're sort of collecting, like in the world of knife making at least, and collecting knives. You want to make yourself accessible to the public. There is a knife maker out there that, I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but he's a knife maker that pretty much everybody wants his knife, and he knows everyone wants his knife. But he doesn't make himself accessible to everyone. And I think there's something to be said about that. I mean, if you're not allowing other people to see the work that you do, and you're not giving them an opportunity to experience and own your knife, then what are you in the business for? I won't say the name of the knife maker, but you could probably pretty much guess if you're into custom knife making, and you do collect custom knives, and you're in this part of the world, and you're in this world of collecting and buying knives, and you know what knife makers that I'm talking about. Those guys just completely close themselves off. Their work is incredible. You want to own what they make, but unfortunately, they don't allow their work to be accessible to you all the time. Sometimes you can order a knife from them. It takes like 10 years to get the knife. Do you really want to go through all that and stand in line that long? I don't know anyone that would want to do that. And here we've got Des Horn, who's a legendary knife maker, probably one of the greatest knife makers out there in South Africa, who makes himself accessible to everyone all the time. All you got to do is reach him, talk to him, and order a knife from him. He will work with you on the materials. And then in the end, he delivers the knife to you, and you're just absolutely blown away. So, I mean, I guess the whole point of the story is that if you are a knife maker and you made a name for yourself, it's only fair that you share the knowledge, and you share the knowledge, and you share the enjoyment of what you do with others. If you're into it for profit, then you're in the wrong business. That's all I have to say. Having said that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this video on Des Horn. And I really do hope you guys find his knife in your collection somehow. For those of you that are not ready to purchase a knife that costs this much, you can still experience Des Horn through Spider Code. There is a knife out there called the Des Horn, and it's made with cocobolo wood. I think the knife is still around. I'm not sure. It might be discontinued, but you can still get it if you look around hard enough. The knife is like on eBay and other places like that. You can probably find it, and check out, Facebook, check out Instagram. Someone out there might be selling it. It's a really neat little knife, and it's just an introduction to Des Horn's work. So, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out now with my Des Horn large ball release. And I'm here at the Ruston Way waterfront in Washington. I hope it's not difficult to hear my voice over all these cars that are going by. But I do like to do these videos outside where I can, clear my mind and pretty much think about what I'm going to say. I hope I haven't been rambling on. So this is Omar, your Knife of the Party guy, signing off, hoping you'll find a Des Horn original in your collection. Thank you so much for watching, and you guys have a fantastic weekend.